and welcome to another episode of Tales of the Gutsy Ninja. And today we're going to be talking about, am I a sage? Anyway, stay tuned. Go get your coffee. Go get your snack. It's going to be an awesome ride. Stay tuned. All right, welcome back. So, am I a sage? Well, we have sage mode today. Got my board. Excuse the writing. So, we're going to be talking about wisdom, role modeling, miracles, and I'll explain that to you. Refusal to live in comfort, and by that means luxury, and divine connection. So, wisdom. Now, if you're young and you feel like you understand, what we call today teachers or preachers, or you understand in general what they talk about in a deeper understanding, and you're young and you're like, well, I don't have gray hairs. How can I be a sage, right? These people are old, right? These guys are old. Look at Jordan Peterson. He got gray hairs, right? Well, if you understand them in a further analysis, not just Jordan Peterson, but every single teacher, you're most likely a sage. Now, there's people in average IQs, they can understand what they're talking about, but you dive deeper into the equation of what they talk about. You understand further knowledge than your average person. You're probably a sage. And by wisdom, you don't fit the boxes of religion. You study Quran, you study the Torah, you study the Bible, and you study all major religions, even Buddhism, and you kind of check every single box from all of them. And then you tell yourself and you realize, I don't fit in none of them. I don't want to be Christian. I don't want to be Israelite. I don't want to be, whatever, a Muslim. But every single one of these beautiful faiths and these beautiful religions call me. And this is one thing that I would recommend for you to do is dive into the specific religion that you were born into. I was born into Catholicism, Christian, but I never checked the boxes fully into it because I was like, I don't belong in here. I don't belong in being a Christian Catholic. But I like the information and the teachings of every single religion. So I told myself, well, let me study them. And once you dive into all of them, you will dive into spirituality. Now, not everybody can reach spirituality because it's far more than that, and it requires a lot of discipline to withhold your sexual pleasures. And yes, it requires for you to be celibate. Okay, it's not just about I'm gonna go have fun here, but be spiritual. It does not mean that you're gonna cut off your fun. Okay, thankfully, you are allowed to have a girlfriend, but you will realize that the more you held back from releasing your sexual energy, and you dive into spirituality, you realize that the body doesn't crave it anymore. And that's what a sage is. And that's what a priest is. That's what a nun is. That's what a religious person is. But a sage is completely different from all of them. You have a whole different liberty that you can explore in your life. Does that mean you're going to go out there and just sleep around? Absolutely not. Because you understand that sexual pleasure is transmutation of energy. And a sage understands that. So whatever your religion that you've been born in, dive deeper into it in a spiritual level and even in a scientific level. Because a sage is just almost as part as a guru. But a guru is completely different. Gurus are amazing and gurus will help you actually reach your destination of spirituality. A sage already understands that he's a spiritual being. A guru helps the person that does not understand spirituality become spiritual. A sage is already seeking spirituality. So, With that being said, understand one major advantage that you have. It does not mean that you're not wise at all. A lot of people think that if you don't have gray hairs, that you're not wise. A lot of these older folks, and particularly we call them preachers, teachers, professors, they think that because you don't have gray hairs, that you are not wise. On the contrary, though, you're actually very wise. So, and don't be afraid to be different if you're called into sagehood or sage mode. And these teachers, this wise man, think that wisdom only comes with age. And a sage has wisdom since the beginning of their youth. Now, this is one thing and this is talking for you that you are young, and you are ambitious, and you're ready to take on the world. You might be like, well, I understand so much things, but sometimes I don't want to speak out towards people because they might not see me as I am, very smart, and that's okay. Sages, actually, when they're young, they play the fool card very, very good because they understand knowledge more than the average person. And let me tell you something, the average person thinks they're very wise, the average person thinks they're very knowledgeable, but the sage knows and the sage understands that he does not know everything to its full capacity. Everybody else thinks that, oh, I know this, so you don't need to tell me anything. I'm going to tell you how this is done. A sage sits back and analyzes the information. Everybody that's smart, just are like, oh, I'm smart. A sage understands that he's a fool. A sage understands that he's kind of like a little slowpoke. A sage understands that he is not always right. Now, the second, role model. You ever wonder why young people might gravitate towards you? Even when you were young, even when you were 14 and 16 and 18, and younger people kind of gravitated towards you. See, in the beginning, a sage is already a role model. And the hardest part about a sage being a role model is that whatever the sage is doing, people are going to try to want to do that. People are going to want to try, if you're smoking, people are going to try to go smoke. If you drink a lot, people are going to be like, oh, well, he drinks, I'm going to go drink. You ever wonder how you might change the atmosphere wherever you are, or the habits of other people? Once you stop doing something, people are like, hey, he stopped doing it. Let me see what it's about. And you bring a different perspective to somebody. And it doesn't mean that they're going to stop doing it. Not at all. It doesn't mean they're always going to stop and do it. But it does mean that you're inspiring people. Now, this is not your regular inspiration of being a celebrity. No, not at all. All right. A sage inspires people in a different aspect of life. A sage inspires people to seek within. A celebrity only inspires to seek to them. Okay? An artist inspires to seek to them. They're going to tell you amazing things, of course, because they're also knowledgeable, but they're not wise. And it's going to sound very terrible to say. But artists and celebrities are not wise because they let themselves be influenced by their own circle. While a sage, gurus, priests, nuns, and everybody that is in the spiritual level, they inspire others. See, a celebrity and an artist is going to inspire to go do what they're doing, but because they got inspired by somebody else. A sage, on the other hand, a priestess, inspires others to seek their own pleasure. A celebrity and an artist is going to tell you to go find the pleasure and get the pleasure. You understand that? Take the information as you wish and analyze what I'm trying to say there. Now, when it comes to miracles, what is a miracle? Is it like how Christ rose people from the dead and healed people from the sickness? Well, the sage are close to that. A sage is somebody that's going to heal you in the spiritual level. And you might say, well, we have priests and nuns for that. But a sage is somebody that has brought back a balance to the world. See, we live in an era where we don't like to use the word prophet. We don't like to use the word sage, shaman. We like the word guru because it's cool. But those other terms, like guru still, is from the old past and will never change. So we transmuted the word prophet to the word preacher, to the word teacher, to the word professor, because it's a little bit easier on the ego of humanity. Now, are you a prophet? Well, ask yourself this question. Let's say you've been to church, and let's say you started to talk about the Bible, even right now. Let's say you have a YouTube channel and you talk about God. You're already a prophet. You're already a priestess. But humanity in modern era are going to tell you that you should be quiet and that you should shut up because that's not true. They will tell you that you don't know what you're talking about. Even Mr. Joe Osteen, I'm sorry to butcher his name, but you know the famous prophet? You know he has his mega churches? He's a prophet. He's not just a preacher. But he's not going to be out there saying that he's a prophet because people will get scared. A prophet is somebody that's speaking and talking about the word of Christ, or he's talking about Buddhism. A monk is just a prophet that practices Buddhism. A guru, a healer, a shaman is just somebody that practices their faith and their belief. A priest is also a prophet. And there's many of them in the world. There's a lot of preachers, there's a lot of prophets in the world. But we're living in an era where the shamans, the healers, the priestess, and the sages are coming back into humanity. And it's going to be a very, very difficult thing for humans to grasp because people don't want to grasp that. They don't want to say, oh, how are you a sage? Who told you that you're a sage? Or who told you that you're a priestess? Who told you that you're a prophet? I did, because the Holy Spirit revealed it to me. See, sages also work in the consciousness of Christ. They cannot be separated. A guru also works in the consciousness of Christ. It cannot be separated. A priestess works in the consciousness of Christ. It cannot be separated. Okay? But the sage understands that his miracle is to also heal in the spiritual level, and it's actually very hard. And you might think, well, I'm not a sage because I don't perform miracles, I'm not healing people. On the contrary, maybe you've been at work, maybe you've been somewhere in your life and it seemed like it was a terrible, maybe the energy was so strong and you're like, well, this energy is weird, like, man, people here are miserable. And you stepped into that room, into that office, into that building, and slowly you started to see people's true nature. And people started to be more happy. And then people were attracted to you in the sense that they wanted to get to know you because you gave that spark of happiness and fulfillment. See, a sage walks a very lonesome path. He's like a Mandalorian of the world. It's pretty badass. But not everybody can walk with them. Even the women Mandalorian are awesome because nobody can walk with them. And trust me, not a lot of you guys are going to be sages. Not a lot of you guys are going to be prophets. And not a lot of you guys are going to be priestess. But only a few of us are called upon the Holy Spirit. Just like God calls his priests and his nuns and everything in between. God also calls out the sages of the world because he's the balance that the world needs. And this message is specifically for all of you sages out there that feel like you've been isolated for so long. You're not just part of the collective. You guys also are sages of the world. You guys here to bring the balance. Okay? Now, number 4. This is very important. And I'm trying to compound this information in a 30-minute video because I will just ramble around about what is being a sagehood, being a sage. Now, number 4 is called you refuse comfort. And by comfort, we're talking about luxury comfort. Because luxury, riches, gives you comfort. Comfort. Once you make your money, once you have successfully businesses, people become very comfortable. The ones that don't become comfortable, you will see them on the internet. They're out there selling their products, selling their stuff, promoting their business constantly, constantly, constantly out there selling what they got to offer. The sage is different. The sage is very different. The sage refuses the materialistic things of the world. Me personally, as a sage, I have taken vows when I was younger in my Christian ways to be in chastity of poverty. Okay, so during my lifetime, I have not accumulated any wealth because I have took since I was 21, 22 to live by a very minimalistic life. Okay, so I go to work and I have jobs where I have been unhappy and I have jobs where I've been happy. And the main focus on that is that a sage lives under the luxury. Now, can you have abundance? Of course, it's not wrong to not have abundance, you know. It's not wrong to have money in your pocket. It's not wrong to have a decent home, an apartment, anywhere that you want to live at. Okay, get that out of your head that if you're a sage, that you should, not have good things in your life. You should have good things in your. Don't think that you're a sage doesn't mean that you're not supposed to have good things in your life. You do, okay? Right now, I'll tell you something. I am breaking apart from my poverty vows into an abundance life. Does that mean that I'm gonna go and be flexing this much money in the world? No, because I'm just getting out, okay? And this is for you guys out there that are like, you know what, I've been working so hard, I have not built anything in my life, and just things in my financial part just seems that I have not hit that stride where everybody around me has everything. But I'm gonna tell you something. People play the role of having their needs met very, very good. You could see somebody in a Mercedes Benz, but they're probably paying $800 to $1,000 a month in car payments. Okay, and they could be living with their mom, or they could be living with roommates, or they could be, which is nothing wrong. Okay, or they could be living with other people, which is nothing wrong. People should have friends and family they should be able to live with. But what I'm saying is, don't think that everybody that has fancy things has their life together. You need to remember we're living in a modern era, especially if you're a man, that if you don't have the luxury, you're not gonna get no honey from the woman. Okay? And on the contrary, you shouldn't be worried about that. If you're in your 20s, even in your 30s. I'm 33. And I'm not even worried about none of that. And it's not because I'm a sage at all. It actually helps me to sit back and live my life very, very peaceful. But because if you're a sage, especially as a guy, and this is for the woman too, your flame when it comes to energy is not gonna attract somebody that's still in the mundane world. And by mundane, I mean sages specifically are not always about partying. I've done it. You've done it. Drinking and smoking all the time. Comes to a point when once you hit your spiritual level and you realize that you're refusing the conformities of the world, the luxuries of the world, that you're seeking higher beings. And by higher beings, I'm not talking about somebody that's richer, somebody that's wealthier. No, you want to reach a higher being in the spiritual level. Okay? Because you want somebody that matches your energy, that is walking in their purpose like you're walking on your purpose, right? So right now, let's say, like I'm breaking out of my poverty vow. I'm reaching a level where I see myself where I want to be. I see myself that I'm still going to be a sage, but you know, I want to have a nice, decent home. I want to have a nice, decent car, and I'll be able to help other people, right? Because when you take poverty vows, you're taking poverty vows because it is an oath to the world, to the Creator, to humble you, to humble you. And a lot of you guys are like, oh, my finances are not a great, I've been constantly, I just live in almost paycheck to paycheck. Yeah, I might have some money where I can go out and have a drink and go out, have some ice cream, go out and do this. But it's not like my friends. Look at my friends. Comparison is the thief of joy. And before you reach your abundance, don't compare yourself to other people. Okay? Just like you see me right now, I don't compare myself to my friends or to other people because I know my purpose and I know my journey. So if you're still in the mentality that you're like comparing yourself to other people, break that habit. That's a habit. That's a habit that people have. They compare themselves to other people. Or when you compare yourself like, oh, I can't find love, or like break that habit of thinking that every woman is out there to hurt you or break your heart. You, as a sage, as a man, in particularly, you're supposed to have heartbreaks. We can take it. We can deal with it. There's a reason why a woman can't handle rejection, and that's the reason why women are women and we are men. We can handle rejection, and we can handle the breakups, and we can handle the emotional, heartbreaks. And I know a lot of people in this community called the red pill. They say women move on faster. They have to, because women can't handle rejection. Okay. So if you're living right now in your refusal, your conformity, and you're breaking that part out in the world, where you're like, you know what, I want things in life, but I don't want to be luxurious about it. And you've never craved anything where you're meant to be having a bunch of luxury, you're a sage. It means you learn how to live humbly. And it's okay. You will find somebody that will match your energy where they also like to live humble. Does it mean that you're not going to have a decent home? Nah, you're going to have a good home. You're going to have a good car. You're going to have a good life. But it just means that you're not going to be a show off. And it's okay to be a show off, okay? There's nothing wrong with that. If you're a man in particular, we love to show off. But if you're a sage, it's completely different. Because most women want guys they like to show off. And yes, ladies, you guys like guys that show off. If not, you wouldn't be attracted to the guys that are in their hustle and they have their cars and they have their things together because they're showing off. But if you're a sage, it's completely different. You're actually gonna attract a woman that is on her energy level as a priestess. And it's gonna sound weird for me to say the word priestess, and you might not be able to understand the word priestess that I'm talking about. But a priestess, a woman that's a priestess, is a woman that is on her Kundalini energy. Okay? It means that she is gonna live in abundance. She wants to live in abundance. But she wants a man that is in touch with his energy, with his soul. Because let's be real, looks fade away. Looks fade away. We're gonna get old and wrinkly. Right? The only people that don't like to be old and wrinkly is people that are not in love with their own selves. I'm sorry to break it to you, but if you're constantly putting Botox, and if you're constantly doing things, and this is also for the man, you're not really happy with the essence of your body deteriorating to its full potential. Because we're corpses that are deteriorating down. We're only maintaining them because we eat carcasses, right? Chicken, meat, pork, beef is a carcass. And our bodies learn to digest something that is already spoiling. Because once an animal is dying, it's already spoiling. But our bodies are amazing. Creator made our bodies so amazing that he was able to make our insides able to deteriorate all of that carcasses inside of it. And we call it feces. Now, not to get off too much off topic, but it's a nice little fun thing for you there to think about. Now, divine connection. A sage is in touch with his divine connection. And a sage is not welcome with priestess. Sorry, a sage is not welcome with Christian people in particular, because sages practice something different, and people that are Christian, they practice the Bible. But a sage does not practice the Bible laws. The sage is in a completely different level. A sage understands that we are all one. A sage understands that there is no division between any religion. Religions in particular like to be divided. I'm sorry to say this, but Christians, Muslims, Mormons, you guys like to be divided. You guys like to say, my God is better than your God. My God is better than your God. My God is stronger. My God is Allah. My God will kick your God's butt. My God is so powerful. Is religion dividing each other? And it's okay, because Christ didn't come here to give you guys peace. And this is why you guys are constantly have to fight. Because unfortunately, Christ told you guys he wasn't coming here to peace. But a sage understands that the whole circle, because the religion is a square, but the sage understands that within that square, it's a circle. And the sage, it's in the middle. Because the sage understands that every religion leads to the Creator itself. Here you have the Muslim saying, Allah is powerful and we'll beat you guys because they won the Crusades. But Allah is powerful because we took Jerusalem. And the Christians are like, we will show you that our God is powerful, which is the same God. And then here comes the Mormons, which derived from the Christian Catholics, is still the same God. And here comes the Buddhists. They're telling you guys also like, yo, what are you guys fighting for? We're all connected. But it's still within our own religion. But a sage is in the middle, witnessing all of these religions fighting each other. And a sage is you. A sage is somebody that understood in the beginning of life that he was different, or she was different. She walked isolated. Probably you walk isolated. Even with your own family, you feel isolated. Like they never understood you properly. And your divine connection with God, it's one of a kind. You can actually feel and hear the voice of God wherever you go. And no, you're not crazy, because gurus can also hear that voice. Priestess can also hear the voice. And your famous preachers, right? They can hear the voice too. But you guys cheer them on because, they're in the stage saying, praise God, praise Christ, hallelujah, amen, praise him, everybody get up, right? It's the voice of God that's telling them to do that. But a sage is not welcome. And a lot of humans right now that are being born are the new sages coming into the world, the new healers coming into the world, the new priestess coming into the world. But if you're a man out there and you always feel isolated, you always felt like you wanted to be with one person, for the rest of your life. You always felt that you were unique. And I really mean the word unique. Because you understand that you were already connected with a divine source since you were a kid, maybe 7, 8, 9, 10 years old. You knew people treated you different. You knew that in your classroom, people kind of gravitated towards you all the time. And everybody always wanted to talk with you. And everybody was like, really wanted to see what you had to say. Because believe it or not, the people around you growing up knew that you were a sage. And I'm here to tell you here right now, you're a sage. Welcome to sagehood. It's not easy. You will have been isolated for a long time. You feel like the outcast of the world. But that's because a sage walks his own path. It's his own journey. A sage walks the shadow of the world. This is why this channel is called Tales of a Gutsy Ninja. Because at the end of the day, it's a lot of responsibility to be a sage. And maybe you're right here, there watching this. Maybe you had people had expectations of you. Oh, he's gonna be amazing person. Oh, he's gonna be the best at this. He's gonna be the best at that. And you told yourself, I don't want none of that. I don't want people really approaching me. I don't want to be, meeting people all the time and saying hi to people. And that's okay. That's okay. You're a sage. You've been a sage. You've been a sage because I'm going to tell you one thing about connects every sage in the world. This is for mothers out there, specifically that had sons or daughters. They were born with the umbilical cord tied to their neck. Most likely your kid, before they came to this earth, did not want to come because they knew that within the womb that they have to be a sage. And it's that we chose that. But when we were about to come here, we're too early to be coming into this world to be a sage. Look at the world, modern. It's like a sage, you think of a sage, you think somebody out there in the mountain meditating. But it no longer has to be that way. Now, a sage can be somebody that goes to work, that you meet in the grocery store. The sage is now somebody that you might meet somewhere in a hike. The sage is somebody that can be at home by himself, alone, meditating about life. So don't be scared to be a sage. And if you're thinking, am I a sage? If you ever question yourself, am I a sage? Probably answer is yes. If you ever had to ask yourself, am I a sage? Why do I walk like I'm a Jedi? Why do I walk like I'm a Mandalorian? And I put it to you this in movie terms, because a Jedi is a sage. Okay? Now, depending on what God is calling for you, you could have had kids. I mean, Anakin had kids, right? And let's be real, we don't know the life of the Jedis, but we know the Mandalorians can, get nice and funky and freaky. No, but seriously, like, you guys are a sage. You guys are walking different paths than everybody else. This is why the messages from everybody else in the world does not correlate to your personality, because you're a sage. Simple, plain and simple. You were born to be different, and you are a healer. Okay, in the sense that you bring happiness to wherever you go. Now, sometimes might not be smiling all the time, but you bring happiness. People feel your happiness. People feel that you are fulfilled with what are you doing. And let me tell you something. You ever just left the work and we're like, you know what? I don't feel like working here anymore. And you just left, put whatever week, even not even a week, you're just like, I'm done. Because you already knew that your job there was already done. So welcome to being in the sagehood. Welcome to being a sage. Do not be afraid to be a sage. Trust me, it's not lonely, but you do walk a lonesome road. But I'll put it to you this way. Have you watched The Mandalorians? They walk by themselves. And then when they find their group, they walk with their group. They get, their friends. They make tons of friends everywhere. Because Mandalorians are cool. So think of being a sage like a Mandalorian, like a Jedi, like a ninja, right? Like, you are own unique in your own special chakra. You have your own unique way of thinking. But at the same time, you belong in the tree of life with the sages. Because you have been chosen since the beginning. And it's not that God chose it for you. It's not that people chose it for you. Is that we chose it ourselves. But we let the outside world and the whispers of people that are not happy with themselves tell us who we're supposed to be. Because a sage is very powerful. A sage, believe it or not, he's the jack of all trades and he's mastered a bunch of them. That's what a sage is. That's why a sage can relate to certain people. That's why a sage can relate to Christians, to the Mormons, to the Muslims, to the Jewish. Because a sage absorbs the energy of such people and he relates because a sage can walk in their shoes. A sage can walk inside of their mind and think like them. Religion limits people in their boxes. A sage does not have a limit. A sage is like water. A sage can flow like the rivers, like the canyons, like the waterfalls, because a sage adapts to the mentality of the people that he's around with. And he doesn't over bypass their intelligence. He matches their energy. You ever wonder why when you met somebody that was super angry all the time, and as much as you try to reason with this person in the energy, they push your benevolent spirit to be like, oh, you want to see angry? You think you're an angry person? Or you think you're a rage person? I will show you angry. I will show you benevolence. I will show you so many dark side that you won't be happy about it. And that's what a sage does. A sage matches that energy of people. This is why when you have exploded in your life, you were like, why did I explode? It wasn't just because, it was because you were ready to match the energy towards that person. And believe me, if you've been a sage your whole life, you've probably been the quiet person, you've probably been the quiet girl. And then when they push your button, they're not pushing your button. You're matching that people's frequency and energy. And trust me, they get scared. Because they're like, how can this person have so much anger? You're like a mini Hulk in your life. Thanks for watching. Hopefully you understand the message that do not be afraid to be a sage. Do not be afraid to walk this path. It's an amazing path. It does come with abundance. But before you start to walk into your abundance era of a sage, understand that maybe you were walking in your poverty era. Okay? Because the thing with the sage, it's like a Jedi. If God gives you too much too soon, you will turn like Anakin Skywalker. Which is cool, right? But who did he turn to? Darth Vader. Right? Too much power corrupts. And that's the thing. You ever wonder why you're like, how come they haven't given me my money? How come I haven't received what I wanted since I was a kid? I wanted nice cars and I wanted nice homes. And maybe you wanted some bunch of girlfriends. I don't know. But maybe you did. Or maybe you're like, I want a bunch of boyfriends. I don't know. I'm not here to judge you guys. All I'm going to say is it does not work for the same. But maybe you're like, I want a bunch of boyfriends, or I want a bunch of necklaces. I want a bunch of shoes. And I want a bunch of Gucci bags, or whatever it is if you're a woman, right? If you're a man, you're like, I want a big house. I want nice cars. I want to be driving a freaking Bugatti. I want to be driving this and that. You ever wonder why you keep struggling and struggling? It's because God does not reward right away. God is not going to give it to you because he knows your heart. See, God knows my heart. And this is why I love living in poverty vows, even up to right now. Because God knows that you can be corrupted by too much power. So he's going to give it to you slow, small amounts, small amounts, small amounts, small amounts. See, God gives it to some people right away, like boom. And you see them over there, the big houses, and they got their, Camaros, and they got their Mercedes Benz, or they got their Bugattis, and they got their Ferraris and whatever, right? And you're like, well, I'm trying to manifest that, but how come I haven't got it? Or you're a girl and like, how come she has that but I don't? Because that's a habit of you comparing yourself. But it's also a habit that you don't understand of. God does not give it to you right away, because God knows exactly who you are, and God would know exactly what you would have done if He would have given you too much power too soon. The time of the Creator is amazing. Don't think that you are falling behind because you don't have the nicest car, you don't have the biggest house or the nicest house, or because you don't have the nicest clothes in the world. God is a creator, and He will give everybody exactly what they need and what they crave and what they desire at its due time. And me as a sage, I'm here to tell you that. So don't fret that you haven't received what you wanted in your life. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful day. See you till next time. Matane.